Suppose you're in an interview setting and you've got a very simple question. Detect if a vector of integers is in sorted order. You can create a isSorted function that takes in a vector and returns a boolean. In the for loop, if we check v.size, that returns a size t. You want to go through all the variables except the last one, and what you want to do is check if the variable that comes after the current one is smaller than the current variable, then we know that the vector is not sorted. And if we've gone through the entire vector and we've not returned false, then we know we can return true. This seems perfectly reasonable, and your interviewer asks you a quick question. Can you think of any edge cases? Well, there's one edge case where, there's only one element, and then there's another edge case when there's 0 elements, and you think, of course my code's going to handle this perfectly, right? You create these asserts that take in v1, v2, and v3. You can make the code, and oh, you've got a segmentation fault. This line right here is the cause for concern. So let's talk about this specific statement inside the for loop, which is v.size minus 1. So what is v.size? So the size returns a size t. We know that size t can be dependent on the system, but we know that it's going to be unsigned. In my system, it's an unsigned long, but in your system, it might be an unsigned integer. But at the end of the day, it's going to be unsigned. What happens when you subtract 1 from 0 in an unsigned integer? It ends up getting looped around. We can confirm that this is happening by doing a quick little printl. I'm printing v.size and v.size minus 1. In the first case, when the size of the vector is 3, nothing unusual happens. In the second case, again, nothing unusual happens. But in the third case, when the size of the vector is 0, size minus 1 is equal to this very large number. And that's why we're running into a segmentation fault. So how do you fix a problem like this? One way to fix this problem is to move the minus 1 to this side right here. I plus 1 is less than v.size. We know for a fact that this won't cause any issues if the size of the vector is equal to 0. If it's equal to 0, nothing will happen. If it's size max, which is the maximum value that it can be, well, I plus 1, it must be lower than size max. So what that means is that the maximum value that I can be in this entire for loop is it can be at most size max minus 2. Right? It can be at most size max minus 2 because I plus 1 has to be less than v.size. And so when we check v of I and v of I plus 1, if the size of the vector is the maximum that's available in size max, then the final element can only be appearing in size max minus 1. By checking I and I plus 1, where I is equal to size max minus 2, and I plus 1 is equal to size max minus 1, we are checking every single element in the vector as we would expect. So this is kind of the way that you could solve this problem. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, to me, this approach is very non-standard. If I was an engineer and I was in a code base and I saw code like this, I would be pretty surprised. I would be pretty confused, especially if, let's just say, there were no comments anyway. Unless I was an experienced C++ developer, I wouldn't really know what to think of this. So the proper way to actually solve a problem where you might need to check I and I plus 1 is to actually do the reverse. The easiest way to solve this problem is to actually start with I equals 1 and check I minus 1 every single time. This way we kind of avoid that entire situation of checking v.size minus 1 or doing I plus 1 less than or equal to v.size. Both of those situations are kind of confusing to think about it. So this approach avoids that entire, plus 1 or minus 1 fiasco. We're doing the same thing except this time we're checking the current value with the previous value, right? We're starting at index I equals 1, and then we're checking the previous value, which is I equals 0. And then on the second iteration, we're going to check if the value at index 2 is less than the value at index 1. And if it is, we're going to return false. So essentially, we've kind of just rewired the way that we write this for loop to account for, the issues that size t might present itself in some situations. Let's confirm that this approach works. So I'm going to comment out v1, which we know is broken, and let's do v2 and v3. If all the asserts are true, then we're not going to see any output. And because we didn't see any output and the program exited regularly, we know that there are no issues with the program. So I just thought that was interesting and I want to talk about it in this video because previously we talked about using size t in a for loop, but there is some edge cases to think about when using v.size and size t. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and consider subscribing for more C++ videos just like this. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you guys next time.